My father-in-law laughed at my job, so I fired him the next day. The whole table went dead silent. My father-in-law had just thrown his napkin at me and was laughing his head off. The funny part? He had no idea I'd signed his termination papers just an hour earlier. So let's rewind to that family dinner. It was supposed to be a nice, simple get-together for my wife's birthday. The table was full of her favorite food, and everyone was laughing and chatting. Everyone, that is, except for one person who seemed to live for putting me down. My father-in-law, Tom. Tom is one of those guys whose entire personality is his job title. He was a senior manager at some mid-sized company. And trust me, he never let you forget it. Me, I was an operations manager at a small investment firm. In his eyes, my job was cheap and unambitious. He'd always say things like, "Why don't you aim a little higher?" With this incredibly condescending tone. "You should be providing a better life for my daughter." I'd just smile and brush it off. See, I had my reasons for keeping a low profile. I really didn't want to explain that I was a partner at a holding company that buys up struggling businesses. To him, I was just some guy with a boring desk job, not worthy of his respect, and little did he know, that boring desk job was about to cost him his own. But here's the thing he didn't know. I didn't just fall into my position. I started at the very bottom, working my way up from a junior analyst. I spent years learning everything about how businesses run, margins, operations, and all the little things that cause companies to fail. Eventually, I moved over to the buy side and started a small investment group with a few partners. We look for companies that have potential but are being poorly managed. So when I first heard Tom's company might be for sale, my ears perked up. Its financials were solid, but it was being poisoned by terrible leadership and a toxic work culture. The employee turnover rate was through the roof, and it had a reputation for management-led bullying. I knew Tom's attitude was a big part of that problem. He loved to make fun of junior employees and promoted this awful grind culture that made everyone feel worthless. When the chance to acquire his company came up, I didn't hesitate. It was a great financial move, but it was also a chance to clean up a toxic workplace. He thought it was just another birthday dinner, but I knew it was the night everything would change. Fast forward to the day of my wife's birthday dinner. My holding company had just finalized the acquisition that morning. As I was getting ready, I felt this weird mix of nerves and excitement. I had just approved the new restructuring plan, which included cutting several redundant positions, including Tom's. Earlier that day, I sat in a boardroom with the leadership team, mapping out the company's future. We went through performance reviews and a stack of official complaints that had been filed against Tom. It was crystal clear his leadership style wasn't just bad. It was actively harming the company and its employees. I signed his termination papers, knowing it was the right move for the business. Still getting ready for dinner, I felt a knot in my stomach. This was my wife's father, but I had to remind myself this wasn't personal. It was a business decision based on years of documented performance issues. I had to keep business and family separate, at least for a few more hours. But what happened next would blur those lines forever. Dinner started out fine. Everyone was eating, telling stories, and having a good time. But after a couple of drinks, Tom got that familiar swagger. He turned to me and in front of everyone, started in on my job. Still working that cheap job. Huh, he laughed, and his voice boomed across the table. "You know, you should really let me get you a real job. I could make a few calls, get you in somewhere decent." A few people chuckled nervously. My wife gave me a worried look, but I kept my cool. Tom just kept going. "I doubt you'd last a week in my role. It takes real skill to manage people. You can't just hide behind a desk all day." And then he did it. He balled up his napkin, threw it at me, and let out a huge, arrogant laugh. That's when the table went silent. I took a slow breath. The whole night seemed to hang in this one moment. "You're probably right, Tom," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "I probably wouldn't last in your role. That's why your position is being eliminated tomorrow morning. The holding company that just bought your company, well, that's my company." The look on his face was worth every insult I'd ever endured. It was a beautiful train wreck of emotions, from laughter to confusion, then to pure panic terror. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, his bravado completely gone. "I signed your termination package about an hour before I came to dinner," I said, watching the truth sink in. You could have heard a pin drop, except for the gasps around the room. My wife's eyes were wide with disbelief, but the chaos was only just beginning. The aftermath was exactly as chaotic as you'd imagine. Tom completely lost it. He accused me of sabotaging him, of being ungrateful. He started shouting, "You're just a coward hiding behind your money," his face turning beet red. I didn't raise my voice. "This isn't personal. Tom, your own performance and behavior made you redundant. I can't give you special treatment just because you're my father-in-law." The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Some family members sided with him, but others just sat there, quietly nodding. My wife was stuck right in the middle, trying to process both my secret career and her father's awful behavior. Looking back, there's a part of me that feels satisfied. It was poetic justice. But another part is sad that it came to this. It really makes you realize that people who judge you based on your job, or how much money they think you often have no idea who they're talking down to. In the end, the guy with the cheap job was the one who signed his father-in-law's exit package. Hopefully, it was a lesson for Tom and anyone else like him. Power doesn't always advertise itself, and sometimes the person you mock is the one holding all the cards. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more content just like this. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Let me know in the comments. Do you think I went too far? Or was the revenge justified? I'd love to hear what you think.